When I first started working with gifted students, I thought they would be the easiest group to work with. Independent, high achieving, motivated. Boy, was I wrong. Hi, I'm Nina. I help parents and teachers understand and support gifted learners. Today I'm sharing what I wish I knew about gifted students before teaching them. Lessons that would have saved me a lot of time and stress. So, before I started teaching gifted students, I taught preschool, sixth grade, fourth grade, and a 3-4 split. Yes, in that order. During the pandemic, I met my husband, we got engaged, and we got married, bought a house together. And the house that we bought was more than an hour away from the district that I was working in at that time. So I started applying to other teaching jobs that were closer to where we were moving to. Over the course of that summer, I applied to more than 30 different school districts, and I was finally offered one interview. The interview was over Zoom because it was still on the tail end of the pandemic. It was for a remote teaching position. I mean, at this point, I was applying to any job that I could qualify for. And for this job, I would be teaching students who were going to be quarantined at home. During the interview, I thought it was going well, but then the interviewer said, I don't think you're a good fit for this role. My heart sank. This was the only interview I had lined up. It was towards the end of July. Most schools started in August. But then my interviewer said, I have a position that just opened up that you might be a better fit for. Would you like to hear about it? Talk about a roller coaster. Of course I wanted to hear about it. It ended up being a gifted teacher role. And I thought it would be the easiest teaching assignment I ever had. I ended up taking the job, and I've been in my current role for about 5 years. So currently, I teach and identify gifted students in kindergarten, first, and second grades, which is really unique because most gifted roles start in third or fourth grade. I provide push-in support services during guided reading and guided math time. So what that means is I go into kindergarten, first, and second grade classrooms and provide upward differentiation or above grade level instruction for gifted students and other high ability learners. And sometimes I provide whole group talent development if that's needed. I love my job. I love that I get to work with younger students. If you think about the average kindergarten class, some kids are coming in knowing how to read, how to add, how to subtract. And there's other kids that are going to be sitting right next to them that might not know the difference between a letter and a number. And so when you have all these different kids in the same classroom, that teacher's going to have a hard time meeting the needs of each student. So I work with those students that already come in with some skills, and I continue to build those skills with them. Imagine that a child who comes into kindergarten already knowing how to read fluently and knowing how to add and subtract, they're going to be so bored by the time their classmates catch up to them in first grade. If we don't identify talent early, those students are going to go under challenged. A lot of times they can get labeled with a behavior disorder when really they're just bored and under challenged. So let's get into the misconceptions I had before I started working with gifted learners. The first thing is that they're not always high achievers in the traditional sense. Some gifted students struggle with focus, organization, motivation. Grades and test scores don't always reflect their ability accurately. It's important to get to know the students that you're working with. For example, you might have a student who has brilliant ideas but refuses to turn in their assignments because they're just not perfect enough. Something that's been really helpful with the students that I work with is to focus on progress and process and not necessarily a perfect final product. I try to encourage effort, curiosity, self-reflection, and I don't put too much focus on the final product that they make. The second thing is gifted doesn't mean easy. It means intense. These students might have big feelings, big thoughts, big reactions. Emotional intensity could look like defiance, anxiety, or tears over things that you think are really small or not important. A student might cry because they got a 97% on an assignment because it just wasn't perfect enough. Something I learned is to validate their emotions before addressing the behavior. You can say something like, it's okay to feel upset. Everyone feels upset. But instead of punching someone, let's talk about what are some helpful things you can do when you get upset. Maybe you can go to the calming corner. Maybe you can take some deep breaths. Maybe you can go to the water fountain. The third thing is they need challenge and support. Many gifted kids finish their work quickly and then act out because they're bored. Differentiation and enrichment are essential to keep them learning. For example, you might have a student that finishes assignments quickly and then they distract other students just because they're under challenged and bored. So here's my tip. You can offer choice boards, open-ended projects, or advanced tasks based on their interests. This can go a long way in building a good relationship with that student and keeping any unwanted behaviors far away. The fourth thing is that gifted students can have learning differences. Students might struggle with things like ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and these can coexist with giftedness. This is an interesting area of giftedness called twice exceptionality or 2E learners. If you're interested in this, check out my video on the most misunderstood student in the classroom, where I dive more into this topic. An example might be a student who is brilliant when it comes to verbal reasoning, but they might struggle with things like handwriting, which could make it hard for them to complete assignments. When working with twice exceptional students, something that's really helpful is to focus on their strengths and encourage them by telling them the things that they are good at and building them up in that way. Another tool that might be helpful is assistive technology like voice to text, and also being flexible with how you're grading students. The next one is that gifted students need connection, just like any other student. Gifted kids a lot of times can feel isolated, misunderstood, or like they're too much. They crave authentic relationships with teachers who get them. A lot of times, gifted kids prefer adult company. They might prefer to talk to a teacher instead of their peers. Gifted students already feel so different from their peers. More often than not, they just want to have friends and fit in and feel normal. I remember I was working with one gifted student, and this child just wanted to fit in and be normal, to have friends. This child even told me that in an effort to fit in, she would sometimes write the wrong answers down on her paper so that she could feel normal like the other students in her class. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the level of self-awareness this student had? Something I learned is to show genuine curiosity about their passions, ask them questions about what they're interested in, listen to them, and celebrate their quirks. Gifted kids are not easy. They're not perfect. They might be a little weird. They're human. They're wired differently. They need understanding, flexibility, and compassion, just like every other student and every other human you will meet. If you're new to teaching gifted learners, I hope this helps you see their complexity, not just their capability. What is something that you wish you knew before teaching gifted students? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content about gifted and twice exceptional learners.